Have you ever wondered why we become addicted? It doesn't matter if it's substances, social media, shopping, or even work. The cycle is always the same. At first it seems harmless, then it becomes a habit. And before you even realize it, you just can't stop. But what if I told you that addiction isn't about pleasure, it's about pain? That it's not a personal failure, but a reflection of something deeper inside you. Carl Jung and Gabor Maté reveal that addictions don't just happen by chance. They are symptoms of something much more profound, something most people never even notice. So the real question is, what is your addiction trying to tell you? If you've never thought about it this way before, then this video might just change your perspective forever. Addiction isn't just a moral weakness or a lack of willpower like many people believe. It's a psychological and neurological mechanism that traps the mind in compulsive patterns. According to Carl Jung, addictions are symptoms of an internal imbalance, an unconscious attempt to fill an emotional or spiritual void. Gabor Maté takes it even further, stating that every addiction starts with pain and ends with pain, revealing that the true root of addiction isn't in the substance or behavior itself, but in the suffering it tries to mask. When we think of addiction, most people immediately picture alcohol, drugs, or cigarettes. But addiction goes far beyond that. Social media, pornography, shopping, overworking, all of these behaviors can turn into invisible prisons because they activate the same brain reward circuits as substance abuse. What starts as a temporary escape soon becomes a constant need. And that's where the trap is. The mind believes it has found relief from suffering, when in reality, it's just reinforcing the cycle of dependency. Neuroscientists have discovered that an addicted brain undergoes deep structural changes. The dopamine system, which controls pleasure and motivation, gets hijacked by compulsive habits. With every repetition, the addiction strengthens neural pathways, making it harder and harder to break free. Jung believed that behind every addiction, there is always a hidden search for something greater, a suppressed desire to reconnect with one's true essence. The problem is, when this search goes unnoticed, it turns into a destructive cycle that leads to even more suffering. No one becomes addicted without a deeper reason. Addiction doesn't just appear out of nowhere. It is, in most cases, a symptom of unresolved emotional wounds. Gabor Maté explains that every form of dependency stems from some kind of psychological suffering. What may seem like a simple search for pleasure or temporary relief is actually an unconscious escape mechanism. Carl Jung, on the other hand, believed that when we repress aspects of our psyche, what he called the shadow, those hidden parts don't just disappear. Instead, they find new ways to surface, often taking the form of compulsions and addictions. Studies show that a childhood marked by emotional abuse, neglect, or instability significantly increases the chances of developing addictive behaviors in adulthood. When a child grows up without emotional security, their brain learns to seek relief in external stimuli. The brain's dopamine and natural opioid systems, which should be regulated through healthy human connections, become dysregulated, making the individual constantly seek artificial sources of pleasure. Gabor Maté argues that addiction is, at its core, a form of self-medication for the pain of emotional disconnection. Jung believed that the key to breaking free from this destructive cycle lies in the process of individuation, the recognition and integration of the hidden aspects of our psyche. The problem is that many people spend their entire lives running from what they truly feel. The more we suppress our emotions, the stronger the need to fill the void with something external. This explains why some people seem almost destined to fall into addictive patterns, while others, who had a more solid emotional foundation, don't develop the same dependency. Addiction is not just about pleasure or dopamine. Above all, it is a reflection of an inner void that needs to be understood. Addiction isn't just a bad habit. It's a powerful neurological cycle that rewires the way the brain functions. When a person repeatedly engages in an addictive behavior, whether it's consuming a substance or performing a compulsive action, the brain releases dopamine, a neurotransmitter linked to pleasure and motivation. At first, the sensation is intense, But over time, the brain adapts and requires larger doses to achieve the same effect. This phenomenon, known as tolerance, makes dependency deeper and harder to break. Neuroscience studies show that an addicted brain undergoes structural changes. The part responsible for self-control and decision-making, the prefrontal cortex, becomes weakened, while the brain's reward system becomes hyperactive. This means that the person loses the ability to resist the urge to repeat the addictive behavior, even when fully aware of its negative consequences. Gabor Maté explains that addiction acts as an automatic emotional response to inner suffering. The deeper someone sinks into this cycle, the harder it becomes to escape, because the brain associates addiction with immediate relief, even though in the long run, it leads to even greater pain. Carl Jung saw addiction as a symptom of a deeper imbalance within the psyche. To him, when a person fails to find meaning in life or ignores essential aspects of themselves, they become vulnerable to destructive patterns. And that's exactly what happens in the brain. It shapes itself around the addictive cycle, creating an internal prison where short-term pleasure replaces any real pursuit of meaning. Breaking free from this cycle takes more than just willpower. It requires reconfiguring the mind, understanding the root of the pattern, and finding new ways to fill the void. We live in the age of hyperstimulation. What was once seen as an isolated problem, like addiction to chemical substances, has now expanded into new forms of dependency. Social media, pornography, compulsive shopping, overworking, video games, everything around us has been engineered to capture and hijack our attention, activating the same neural circuits as traditional addictions. Gabor Maté explains that in a society that constantly encourages the pursuit of pleasure and distraction, it becomes harder and harder for people to avoid falling into cycles of dependence. The problem isn't just the substance or behavior itself, it's what we're trying to escape from when we turn to them. Dopamine, the brain's key neurotransmitter in the reward system, is being exploited like never before. Tech companies, entertainment platforms, and even the food industry design addictive products on purpose, manipulating brain chemistry to keep users hooked. The result? Millions of people trapped in compulsive behaviors without even realizing they've lost control. Jung warned that when a person disconnects from their true essence and becomes a slave to external distractions, they weaken their own psyche and become vulnerable to external influences. In other words, modern addiction isn't just a personal issue, it's a cultural and collective phenomenon. The biggest danger in this scenario is that many of these new addictions aren't even recognized as problems. Unlike alcoholism or drug abuse, which are widely condemned, addictions like compulsive phone use or the need for social validation are seen as normal behaviors. Gabor Maté argues that we're living through a silent epidemic of modern addictions, disguised as harmless habits. But the truth is that many of these behaviors destroy the brain's ability to experience real pleasure, leaving people emotionally empty and psychologically fragile. So the real question is, are we actually in control of our actions, or have we been conditioned to live in an endless cycle of instant gratification? Breaking free from addiction isn't just about stopping a behavior, it's about transforming the way we see ourselves and the world. Gabor Maté explains that in order to overcome an addiction, it's crucial to identify the underlying pain that fuels it. Instead of focusing only on abstinence, we should ask, what am I trying to avoid? What is this addiction giving me that I can't seem to find anywhere else? These answers often reveal deep wounds that, if left unaddressed, will continue to trigger relapses. Carl Jung, on the other hand, believed that the path to liberation lies in individuation, the process of reconciling with our inner shadows and finding a true sense of meaning in life. Neuroscience confirms what Jung and Maté suggest. The brain has plasticity, meaning it can be rewired. But this doesn't happen automatically. It requires conscious effort to break old patterns and build new neural connections. This means replacing the addiction cycle with something that truly nourishes the mind and spirit. Instead of chasing dopamine through artificial stimulation, real transformation happens when we engage in activities that provide meaning, purpose, and genuine connection. Studies show that practices like meditation, therapy, creative expression, and personal development are powerful tools for rewiring an addicted brain and strengthening self-control. However, the most common mistake when trying to overcome addiction is doing it alone. Jung believed that the human psyche doesn't evolve in isolation. We grow and heal through our connections. This is why seeking social support, whether through groups, mentors, or therapy, can mean the difference between failure and success. When a person sees themselves as part of something greater, their motivation to change becomes stronger. As Gabor Maté says, healing begins when we stop running from ourselves. And that's the key. The way out of the addiction maze begins the moment we have the courage to face who we truly are. Realizing that addiction isn't just about willpower already changes the way we see this problem. But understanding alone isn't enough. You have to take action. The first step to breaking this cycle isn't fighting addiction head-on, but understanding what it truly means in your life. As Gabor Maté says, the question is not why the addiction, but why the pain. When we start seeing addiction as a reflection of something deeper, we stop treating just the symptoms and finally confront the root cause. What's behind this uncontrollable urge? What is your behavior trying to compensate for? Without these answers, any attempt at change will only be temporary. Neuroscience has already proven that the brain can change, and that's the best news for anyone looking to break free. The cycle of addiction can be reversed, but only when new neural connections are intentionally created. Small, consistent habits can rewire the mind, as long as they are practiced regularly. Replacing destructive sources of dopamine with healthier ones is one of the most effective ways to weaken compulsive patterns. If you turn to addiction for comfort, you can replace it with something that truly nurtures you. For example, if you find yourself endlessly scrolling through social media, try replacing that time with a walk outside or an inspiring book. If emotional eating has become your escape, transform your meals into a mindful experience. Cook with intention and learn to truly savor each bite. If pornography or gaming has become your go-to distraction, why not redirect that energy into art, sports, or learning something new that brings real satisfaction? If alcohol or cigarettes are your crutches for dealing with stress, experiment with breathing techniques, meditation, or physical exercise. They provide relief without trapping you in a destructive cycle. Every small change creates a new neural pathway, and over time, your brain learns to seek dopamine from experiences that actually bring growth and fulfillment. Carl Jung reinforces that the true power of transformation lies in self-awareness. When a person understands that addiction isn't a life sentence, but rather a symptom of something deeper, they begin to take back control, and this requires action. You can't just sit back and wait for the craving to disappear. You need to replace it with something that makes sense for you. Now, the real question is, what will you do with this knowledge? You can keep living on autopilot, repeating the same cycles, or you can take the first step toward rebuilding your freedom. Addiction was never the problem. It was always a signal that something inside you needed attention, and the choice to face it or keep running has always been yours. At the end of the day, addiction was never just about pleasure. It's a silent message from your own mind, trying to show you something you've been avoiding. And maybe the most important question you can ask yourself right now is, what inside me is still unhealed? Because once you understand that, everything changes. You stop seeing yourself as someone who's out of control and start realizing that your addiction was always just a reflection of something deeper. And that awareness could be the first step toward your freedom. Now, I want to hear from you. What habit or behavior have you noticed becoming a vicious cycle in your life? Share your thoughts in the comments. Your reflection might just help someone else too. If this video resonated with you, leave a like. It tells YouTube that this content has value and helps more people who need to hear this message. And if you're ready to keep going on this journey of self-awareness and transformation, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next videos. Thank you so much for your time and for investing a few minutes to reflect on something this important. I'll see you in the next video.